Back to the Osteo Physio YouTube channel. For today's video we are going through our top rehab exercises for the wrist after a sprain or a TFCC injury. So we want to start with wrist mobility. So we want to start by extending and flexing the wrist. So we're starting to lean back, so you can either have your hand open or in a fist position, and we're moving it backwards and forwards. So we want to aim for about 3 sets of 10 reps. So if 1 rep for me is going back and forward with the wrist. What's really important, because you'll probably be adding this in at the point where you're past that acute phase, the pain is significantly reduced, and you're at the point where you're having the rehab to regain movement. We still want it to be within a pain-free range, so don't force this movement. We want to start to add it in gently. Once you've done 3 sets of 10, you can start to then rotate through the wrist. So you want to maybe do 10 circles one way. So we're moving through, so you might feel a little bit of clicking, a little bit of grinding into the wrist. So again, like we said before, within a pain-free range, slow and controlled. Once you've done 10 reps one way, just rotate it the opposite way. So it's really nice to get that movement in first. So particularly after a really horrible injury, you want to get as much movement as possible into that area. You want to start to add in stretching and strengthening. So this is what we're going to cover today. What I would also look at is opening and closing the fingers. So although we're targeting through the wrist in particular, obviously the fingers are really important. If you've been impacting how you're moving your wrist because of an injury, we want to start to open up through the hand. So to repeat what I was saying earlier, with each of these you want to do about 10 reps 3 times through. So really adding in that mobility, so really opening up through the hand and then relaxing. Next we want to stretch in and around that wrist. So really important within a pain-free range, same as with the mobility exercises, we're adding this gradually over time. So we want to start to stretch the hand or the wrist backwards. So you want to take it to within a range that's comfortable for you, but you're feeling a stretch around the wrist. So we're going to gently hold just above, kind of just underneath the knuckles, kind of above those fingers, kind of holding on this area, and we're just gently letting the hand rest back. With a stretch, slightly different to mobility, you want to hold the stretch for about 10 to 15 seconds. So you're holding it there, you want to feel that stretch around the wrist, so we're holding into that position. What we then want to do is gently let the hand drop forward. So again, we're clasping over the top of the hand, just letting it drop down. We should feel the stretch over this bit. So we're holding it into that area, so holding that stretch for about 10 to 15 seconds, so just letting that wrist relax is really, really important. What I would then do in terms of stretches is I would take it 1 step further. So rather than just stretching in and around where the pain is, I would want to take that stretch a little bit higher into the forearm, because a lot of the muscles are in the forearm but attached down over the wrists, into tendons, into the fingers. So what we're going to do first is stretching this part of the inner part of your forearm. So what we're going to do is turn the hand upwards like we did earlier with just the wrist stretch, and you're going to continue that stretch all the way into the forearm. So you can do it at the same time. I think it's nice if you've had a wrist injury to do one stretch, do the other side, and then come back to this stretch. Same with the wrist, we want this within a pain-free range, slow and controlled, holding this for 10 to 15 seconds. So you're really stretching this back, and then gently coming out, and then on the opposite side, turning down. So like we did before where we were just stretching down through the wrist, you're extending that forward. So you're stretching this forward into the elbow as well. So up into that forearm, we should be feeling it around this bit of the forearm. Again, same with the other stretches, holding between 10 to 15 seconds, so holding that position. Really, really nice stretch through there, so just letting everything relax, and then coming back up into that neutral position. Next up, we want to start to strengthen around the wrist. So one of my favourite things to do first is to get a stress ball or a resistance ball. What you want to start to do is gently squeeze the ball as tight as you can, and then let go. This is a great way to start to strengthen around the wrist. Obviously we're going to go a bit more in depth in a minute, but it's a really great way to strengthen around the fingers, strengthen around the wrist, because a lot of the time if we've injured our wrist, it's that grip strength that goes. So we want to hold for a second on that end range as we're squeezing the ball. So just think about anybody who's upset you during the day. You're going to squeeze that ball as tight as possible and then relax. And I would aim for about 3 lots of 10 reps. Okay, so holding for a second and then relaxing. So again, you're just repeating that slow and controlled. If it's still painful, obviously always consult your musculoskeletal expert first. But if it's really sore, I would just reduce the range. You don't need to go so strong with the squeezy ball. So just careful with the range, hold for a second and then relaxing. Next, you want to add on more strengthening around the wrist. So I'm using a TheraBand, so a long resistance band here. You can use a little hand weight. You can use one of those circular resistance bands. I find these are quite good when starting out because they're not so intense as sometimes holding a hand weight. So we want to start to strengthen in all vectors around the wrist. So the first thing we want to think about is flexing down. So flexing through the wrist. So you want to imagine with the band, you need to bring it behind the direction that you're resisting. Okay, so you can see I've gripped it just above the thumb, under the fingers. The other hand is going to pull it back. You're going to clasp around the TheraBand, and then it's a really subtle movement forward. So if I show you from the side, it's a really subtle movement as you're bending that wrist forward. So same with the squeezy ball. With this one, or resistance ball, I would aim for 3 lots of 10 reps, slow and controlled. So I would do 10 reps, stop, and then repeat. So the idea of this is it's a really, really subtle movement through the wrist. So it's just building up very gradually over time. And like I said, you know, not just to help you rehab from that original injury, we want to make the wrist even stronger so that longer term, it doesn't happen again. So really, really important. And then relaxing there. Next thing, we want to look at deviating in both directions. Okay, so this is a little bit more subtle. So if we're going to go away, this way is where we're deviating to, so ulnar deviation. We want to do it whether we're holding the TheraBand this way and then we're bringing the wrist away. Again, it's a really, really subtle movement. It's not a huge movement like if you're doing a big bicep curl. It's a really subtle movement through the wrist. And particularly if you've never strengthened it this way before, if you've never had to strengthen your wrist before, it takes a little bit of getting used to. So I think it's nice to just take it nice and gentle, exactly the same grip as before, but instead of being behind, I'm to the side as I'm doing this. So again, we want to aim 3 lots of 10 reps, slow and controlled, and then relaxing. Next, we want to do resisted radial deviation. So again, instead of having my hand facing that way, you're turning it towards you. Same thing, you're gripping the TheraBand like before, pulling it away, and then you're bringing the wrist towards the thumb side. So we're bringing it away. So we're adding that resistance and bringing the wrist away. So holding for a second and then relaxing. Again, like with all of them, slow, controlled, within a pain-free range. We're not forcing it. But adding it in gradually. I would even say to start with, maybe, you know, just doing this routine once a day, but obviously ask your musculoskeletal expert for their advice on what's best for you. But you're bringing the wrist away, holding for a second and coming back. So you want to make sure this is taut through the resistance band. So you want to add that resistance. Don't let it go slack, because otherwise that's not going to add any resistance. And then we're just really, and again, the movement it's so subtle. It's like a really tiny, tiny movement into that deviation. And we want to aim for 3 lots of 10 reps for that one as well. Finally, we want resisted extension. So same as before when we were pulling like this towards us, we want to do exactly the same, but again, like with the radial deviation, the hand needs to face towards you, okay? So we're going to grip around the TheraBand like we did before. We're going to hold it tight, again, we're resisting, bring the band towards you, and then you're going to push away. So we're pushing very, very subtly away. So you want to add that resistance. It's all coming from the wrist, not the arm, because it's very tempting to move through the elbow with this. But we're adding in the tiniest bit of resistance, building it up over time. That movement through the wrist is a lot more subtle than we realise. So we want that lovely slow movement. Aiming again, 3 rounds of 10 reps is perfect for this resistance. So slow and controlled, because again, even I'm speeding up a little bit as I'm chatting to you guys. So I want to gently let it resist and come away into that extension, aiming for 3 lots of 10 reps, building up that wrist power, and then relaxing. Final exercise, which is the most fun, is looking at propriception. So your ability of the joint to know where it is in space. It's very common that that is reduced after an injury, so we want to rebuild that movement, that dexterity within the wrist. So you can take your squeezy ball that you were using earlier, or you can take a tennis ball, whatever works for you, and you're just going to throw the ball between your hands. Okay, so what you're looking at here is how coordinated are you? But you're also looking at the ability of the bad wrist, or the wrist that was injured, to catch the ball. So you can do it with a single hand. I'm trying not to drop this for the video so I look like I know what I'm doing. You can either do it with a single hand where you're catching, or you can throw between your hands, so whatever feels more difficult or more challenging as you're improving this over time. So again, aim for about 3 lots of 10 catches, having a little break in between, and then relaxing. As always, thank you so much for tuning into our channel. Any suggestions for any videos, please don't hesitate to comment below. With regards to when to add this routine, as most people will ask, I would recommend initially adding it in once a day, maybe for the first kind of 2 to 4 weeks. And then after that, either maybe once or twice a week, you know, starting to spread it out gradually, reintroducing your normal types of exercise as well that might be using the wrist, but most importantly, making sure that you've got your symptoms assessed by musculoskeletal experts, but also that they've provided you with the correct advice for your injury.